Irashimase! Hey, it's Doc. This is Doc, aka Giant Boba, aka Toshiaki Barada, aka Masa My Hero Chonies, aka The Great Bukaki, aka Bobby Yasuke, aka Bruiser Bulgogi, aka Stan the Lariat Ham Sandwich, aka Cassius Claypot Rice, aka Royal True Orange Cassidy, aka your host. And I got a special show today here because I have here a doctor, fellow doctor. He is an author. He has written books such as Ganbaru, which covers the history of the split between All Japan and Noah. He has written also the Muto years, and he has also written this new book called Faith and Freedom, the unauthorized story of pro wrestling Noah. Joining me today is Dr. Jonathan Foye. What's the hops, mate?
Man, thank you so much for having me on, and just that intro. I could listen to that forever. Just you promised me a long introduction, and yeah, it did not disappoint.
Yeah, brother. I love to put my guest over because it's always like how I say it's always a dance and it takes two people to tango and you know and plus I do appreciate someone that comes here because in my family we value education, and I know you got your doctorate. I know your wife. We're both two proud wife guys. Your wife is a
Yes.
is
Yep.
a vice principal. My wife is a therapist. I always love to put my wife over too because she's the boss, and I love her. And we all, as wife guys, we all have to pay homage to our wives at all times. And welcoming you here, I've recorded with other guys from Australia. Shout out to you, Sir Sam. It's such a weird weird way to set things up because you guys got all those different states there with the different. You guys got different time zones. So the Sydney time zone is different from the one in Perth, which is different from all the other ones. So it's like catching someone that's like on like sort of a workable timeline. It rules because you never know. And I want to say welcome, man. And it's great to finally have someone to talk Noah with because pro wrestling Noah, and everybody knows on this show that I love All Japan Pro Wrestling. I love the 90s, I love the 80s, and I love the 2000s, the Mudo years. But for this section of like pro wrestling from the year 2000 to I'd say about the year 2007, pro wrestling Noah was essentially the fan favorite, the Smarks favorite, your favorite poster's favorite wrestling federation, and like the work and the production and all of that, it sort of went into it being like, wow, pro wrestling Noah is really big time, and I I always love Kenta Kobashi. To me, Kenta Kobashi is probably the greatest wrestler in ring belt to belt that I've ever seen, a heavyweight guy. And my second favorite like that of the heavyweights is Kensuke Sasaki. So it just so happens in 2005 they had probably, I'm gonna say this is my favorite match of all time. Two big bulls just chopping each other until they fall down. So my question to you, sir, is how did you fall into pro wrestling? Because this is something I love.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. So the first time was I don't know. I think you and I are probably similar ages. So like during the '90s when wrestling was huge, it was huge here too. They had during the Attitude Era, and you had the WCW versus NWO stuff as well. It was a whole lot of video games that were released at that time. I'm talking the Nintendo 64 era. So
Oh
I
yeah.
kind of that was my gateway drug, and it was big at my school to the point where like if the teacher ducks out for that little bit of time during the 10 minutes or whatever the teacher's out of the room, people are putting each other in headlocks, people are slapping the sharpshooter on each other, like people
Oh
would
yeah.
reenact pro wrestling promos. So it was a really popular thing in the 90s in a way that's really hard to, I think, convey today. I think kind of I know that pro wrestling is relatively popular here still, but just it was a different thing then. And so that was my gateway drug. And then kind of like every other kid, just watching the WWF at the time. And then sort of they have wrestlers like Tajiri, and they had, Mick Foley's books where he talks about his time in Japan. So I'm like, there's a whole nother different set of wrestling and a world of wrestling out there that I haven't heard about. Tajiri really captured my imagination in a big way. And you had the Apta mags back then kind of covered a little bit. So I heard about this thing called the Split, where a bunch of wrestlers were leaving pro wrestling, like they were leaving All Japan Pro Wrestling to form Pro Wrestling Noah. And it's like I hear about Misawa, I hear about Motoko Baba, and I hear about the kind of Vader. I'm like, Vader, what? He's a guy that was in the WWF. Why is he leaving? And yeah, so kind of that really got me stuck into finding out the stuff I missed. So I went over to, like, at the time it was Dish Wrestling, had a lot of stuff on there. So too did a forum I was on. So you kind of like get from there a bunch of free matches, all out of context,
Oh
but
yeah.
much like watching like Sasaki
Yeah, man.
and
We're
Hibashi and guys.
talking we're talking watching wrestling on Real Player.
Yes, yes.
um,
And just the pixel count was not what it was today. I burnt myself a CD of all these matches. Like I had it on like a rewritable DVD, and I took that around to people's houses and would like squint at the quality and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of a gateway drug into other stuff, really, as far as my wrestling journey goes. And I don't know, you kind of invest more and more in things that you love, and I've kind of gotten in, I think, much the same as you. I think it's about as deep as I can get into it.
oh yeah. I mean, when because I do this show like as far as like as a hobby because wrestling has been, I like other sports too. I like MMA. I like baseball. Go Dodgers. I like American football. I like rugby. Rugby is awesome. And Australian rules football is so awesome to watch. Man, those guys have really muscular thighs. Big guys too.
Or fit as well. It's hard to understand like just how tough that game really is because they don't
Yeah,
make it look tough. But
yeah. My friend Laura, she actually works for the Australian Football League. Shout out to you, Laura. And like she kind of got us in like our Discord, like kind of like watching it, and then that's how I sort of like got into it a little bit. Is like, oh, this is interesting. It's like rugby, but not rugby. And yeah, dude, it's. I love Australia. My Australian friends know I love Australia. That's one of the places I want to go. I wanna eat the meat pies. I wanna see the beaches. I just wanna hang in Australia and be just chill. It's not. It always looks like a good place on YouTube to go. And I love the accent because you guys sound like more relaxed and less snooty than the British. And you guys eat actually good food, good looking food, as opposed to what I see on all the Scramble website. That game is rigged. I don't know what the heck's up with that game.
yeah, I mean, I could probably take you to a couple of places as far as like food goes, just pretty close to me here. That would be either way, either the best stuff you've ever had or the absolute worst. There's kind of nothing in between over here.
Yeah, that's what I heard. But I trust my Australian brothers. Like, if you end up here in LA, because I did promise this to Wei Ting and WH Park was, if they come here, I'm going to show you exactly where to eat the Chinese food, where to get the Korean barbecue, even get the regular barbecue. Like, if you end up out here, because I think there was a study about Australians where they have the highest amount of people that are on holidays throughout the world. You always find like some Australian on holiday, no matter where you are, and I think
Yeah,
that's a
where
pretty
my
that's a pretty
wife's
good
from.
thing, man. That's a pretty cool
Yes.
thing. I know you've gone to Japan to watch wrestling live, and that always is like an experience that I think if you're into Japanese pro wrestling and you're into the history, and like if you find yourself going to Korakuen Hall and you go to those steps, with the graffiti, and like they have the graffiti with Liger, a tiger mask, Great Sasuke, and like you just see the history. You see like people write down dates of like historic shows like from like the 80s, and like this is the only place where you're finding graffiti in Japan because Japan
Yeah.
has no graffiti. So like when you had your first like your first time going to Japan to watch a show live. What was that experience like for you as a fan?
Yeah, that was on my first. You mentioned we're both proud wife guys. It was my first wedding anniversary, and we were
Nice.
over. Well, where did we go? We went through. It was like Tokyo, Hiroshima, Kobe, a few other places besides, and just New Japan were doing destruction in Kobe then, and so I was just like, "Oh, where's this place, Kobe? We have to check it out." It's like nowhere near where we're going, but my wife's like, "Yeah, we could go to Hiroshima, and then from there, it's not too far." So we took a bullet train, and I think we're one of maybe 3 or 4 Goku in the entire place while watching
Nice.
that show. Just but definitely like in our first experience, we're sitting in maybe the third row, and
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the name of the wrestler. He was in Suzuki Gun. He shaved his head. He'd been a New Japan mainstay for a long time,
Oh,
and then
Takeshi Izuka,
Izuka.
the
Izuka
big
does his
beard,
entrance.
right?
Yeah, he does his entrance to the crowd, and he's like pushing people out of the way and stuff, and jostling
Yeah.
people, and then he throws Bushi right into our laps. Like my wife and I had to scramble because he threw like Bushi into our chair. My wife looks at me like, "What the fuck have you brought me to?" kind of thing. What is this? What are we doing here?
Oh man. When I took my wife to PWG, right, and then like guys do dives into the crowd, so I was like, "Hun, we gotta move," and then like we see like Ray Phoenix come with us with the tope right into the chairs, and I was like, "See, I told you, if you didn't move, that would have been you." It's, but like that's why there are wives, because they love us enough to go watch wrestling, um, and
Exactly.
like I like when I think about like the ultimate wrestling experience is to watch wrestling live and to watch pro live. It's a different experience than watching it on your screens. But like to be in the actual building, and you guys are in Kobe. Did you eat any like beef when you were in Kobe?
Oh yeah, like at that point though, you know, I'm sure you've had this experience before. Japanese wrestling. A little bit about the country itself, and
Yeah,
then you go and you go there a few times, and you learn more and more between each visit. So I didn't
yeah.
even know Kobe beef was such a big industry, such a big thing until
Wow.
maybe like my second or third trip over there. So I missed out on a lot of this stuff. You kind of like
You
I'm
know,
very like clueless a lot of the time, and,
I
and or I
I,
feel that way
I
over
gotta say this though, brother. Like, I can't really tell the difference between Kobe beef and Australian Wagyu, but I know that Australian Wagyu is better than American Wagyu because
It's a huge industry. Yeah, yeah, for
I
sure.
gotta tell like people all the beef you're getting from like from McDonald's to In and Out to everywhere else, it's not American beef. It's Australian beef. So that's
That
why
is
it's a higher
point. Oh
quality and it
yeah,
tastes better. It's
that was a huge point. Yeah,
it's
with
pretty weird,
Trump.
man.
Like, there's a
Yeah.
huge sticking point with Trump and our prime minister about Australia just doesn't buy American beef,
Why
and
would
it's just
they?
like I don't know, like I don't know that much about it, but it's like, well, we've got a giant industry here like that. If we're going to import anything from you guys, it would not be beef. We have lots of other things we're lacking.
Yeah, and like when I compare the two countries, there's a lot of like similarities between Australia and America. I know I have friends from Australia who said they grew up like watching like a lot of American shows, and there's surfer Australians that like they're bras, and like it's I've met a couple of them that came over here, and I like it's like a different culture. It depends on where you're from, because Australia is huge. You don't know who's gonna be from the outback, from Sydney, from even from the desert, because there's a whole desert community. Like with Perth, and like it's a very interesting place for me based on the geography. It's also funny to me that like I think Castlewaries like kicked you guys out of a couple places.
They declared war on emus to try to like, because you need to in those days you needed to get declare a war in order to get the resources you would need to wipe them out, and they kind of went, you know what, this is not worth it. Like, we're not going to get anywhere near what we need because they're so damn vicious. So
The
technically we lost a
emus.
war to to set up emus and stuff. Like, one of my favorite parts of Australian history. Man, Australian history, so much of it though is like this person lied to these other people, and a bunch of people got bled. Like the story of Lassiter's Reef. If you want a podcast that goes into that, there's a great episode of The Dollop where they had an Australian comedian on, where they went into how this guy just swindled a bunch of people out of money, and yeah, just famous story of Lassiter's Reef. But
Yeah, man, I love that. I love these like very localized stories because a big part of my show is being able to share someone's story or someone's lived experiences. Because if we didn't like wrestling, we wouldn't be talking. But like, what's interesting to me also always is like the person behind the wrestling fan, and a big part of what you write is about the origins of Noah, and I loved hearing your how you got into it, because when we talk about like we talk about the glory years of Noah all the time, right? 2000s, the Kento Kobashi's reign as champion, the rise of Akiyama as the top heel, finally getting the spot that he was going to get in All Japan, and then like it comes to like the part where it sort of falls apart. um, a couple of my friends made videos about it. Shout out to you, Wrestlepective Scott. Because and when we think about Noah, we think about like older talents on top, like Masawa, like never really giving the runs to Morishima, who everybody brings up. And for me, the two guys that he really kind of messed up with was Marufuji when he won the belt, and Takeshi Rikyo when he won the belt. Those two got the belt and then just completely got buried after in their first reigns. And for Takeshi Rikyo, it didn't work out for him because he got that neck injury. But if you find yourself in Tenri, go to Rikyo's. That's Takeshi Rikyo's ramen joint. Pretty good spot. And he's really nice and he knows a little bit of English, so he'll really hook it up if you tell him like, hey, you're the greatest GHC heavyweight champion in my lifetime. Go ahead and do that. See what happens. But yeah, man, it's like you wrote this book, and I know it takes a lot to go into writing. So how did this writing sort of career that you have, because you have 3 books out, how did that come about?
so basically, I've been for my sins a journalist for however long it's been, since 2007. That's 18 years, right?
Yeah.
That So I have been working mostly as a freelance journalist for that time, and also obviously in academia, or also different types of writing. And we had, I think it was the second lockdown in Australia. It was like 2021, right? We got through the first lockdown, and kind of it looked like things were going back to normal. It looked like things were okay. And then we get the second one, and everyone's like, "Oh, what are we doing? Like, this is insane. Why do we have to kind of go through this again?" They're kind of losing their minds, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
well, what am I going to do with this time? Because I'm going to be locked, in my house for a few weeks at least. And my wife just told me, look, you've been talking about wanting to write a book for a while. You've done a thesis. It can't be much longer than that. Now is the time, because you're never going to get time like this again. So like, what book ideas do you have? And I had a couple. So I thought, well, I would have loved to have been able to read a book about, the split, right? Like, that to me is a fascinating story. I thought that someone must have written a book about it, but no one had in English. There's a bunch of books about it in Japanese, but so I thought, sit down, just start writing, see where this goes. So I knocked out the first manuscript on that one in a couple of weeks, and went, holy crap, this is like more fun, more addictive, easier in a lot of ways than like the writing I was doing professionally at the time, or my academic work or anything like that. Like, it was so much easier. So I'm like, why haven't I not been doing this before? So then the second book, and then like I sent a pitch to Hybrid Shoot, but they had been a huge thing of transition, so it took a long time for them to get back to me with a go ahead. But when they did, it was like, oh crap, I've signed a contract. So yeah, kind of fell into it really. But it feels like that's the exciting stuff, and that's the stuff that I can do all night without really, you feel like you kind of barely scratch the surface with Japanese pro wrestling, because we've got the language side, we've got the cultural side, we've got these guys' histories, and there's so much to learn. And I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of any of that.
Yeah. It's because like when you're just talking about like Noah, it's like a 25-year history. That's a long time.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think 25 years now because like for the longest time it was like, oh, this is the new promotion. I know it's filled with the old talent, but it was still new. And to see it last what I like about this year is it sort of had like a resurgence where the talent that should have been pushed were being pushed. It's a really real big shame about what happened to Ozawa with the injury, but and like I could see that how it's affected the drawing right now. But like Ozawa is really one of the guys who was hitting for me as someone that was getting back into Noah. He was part and parcel of me being interested because of his heel work, and he was so different from everybody in that promotion. And like it's fun, and seeing Kitamura actually win the N1 this year, that was pretty cool, man. But it's Kita, so he's gonna lose, and like it's when people talk about Kaito now, like they always, it's hard for him to get that loser stink off of him after that whole burial that New Japan did on him, and like, but he's a very talented wrestler. He's still young, and I definitely see things in him. And there's things there in Noah where there's building blocks where I could see like them having something. Jack Morris is a really good talent. When I think of like their luchadors, like Los Golpeadores and Galeno are three guys in their 20s, extremely talented, and I know like Golpeadores did a bid in Dragon Gate, and I've seen them live in Tijuana when I went to go watch the Crash. Those are two guys who I think have a big future in wrestling, no matter where they go. And once they do announce like their free agency, because I think they're signed to Noah proper, there's gonna be a whole big like bid between them, because those are two guys who come in every tour with different looks, and like it's always like it builds on the last look, because they came in like sort of like plain, and they've gone into like, wow, they have like superstar looks now. I mean, but Noah has really good talent. They have Monday Magic again, which I do like to watch because it's a funny show, and there's stuff about it that you still like get a little bit of the twinge, and like part of it earlier this year was Keno and Kenta sort of having a relationship similar to Nakajima and Go would, where they were acting like little schoolgirls. That was hilarious, man. And it's cool for me too, because I've been a big Kenta fan for like this many years. He's one of the most copied wrestlers out there, and him just like actually putting effort in, even though he's not the Kenta of like 8 years ago, or even like he's just putting in an effort, which is something which is good for me, because I like the guy. Because you have the wrestling now, and then you also have the sarcastic promos that he cuts, which are excellent. I love Kenta's promos.
And it's just so vicious for someone he's not the biggest wrestler on the planet. He's always been smaller than everyone else, but he's the guy who would just walk up to the biggest heavyweight and slap them right in the face and not be intimidated in the slightest bit. There's something about that character, man, that
I love that gif of him getting punched in the face by Tenru.
Yes.
After slapping him. Or like when he slaps Kenta Kobashi, and then Kobashi just gives him the "you thought" face and just starts wailing away. Kenta's always been that little prick that you. But then like when he nails you with something, like it's always like so vicious, like you were saying. He's so cool, man. I love Kenta.
I feel like so many people too, like he had that run in New Japan until fairly recently, and like that was right on the heels of that, the WWE run that wasn't really, and from what he writes about in his book, it just seems like he lost so much confidence in his wrestling and lost so much of a sense of who he was when he was over there. Like they really mindfucked him in WWE, and
yeah.
I think it's great to see him kind of get the sense as to what he means in the wrestling landscape, and kind of this chance to demonstrate that he's still got it. He's broken down, and I think we should be grateful that we've still got him wrestling after. You watch some of his old matches with Marufuji, especially, and it's like, how do
Yeah,
these guys get through this and not be worse off than they really are?
yeah. What I like to do to introduce people to like Kenta is the Ricky Marvin 5 minute match,
Yes.
because like that's everything you want in wrestling in like a short period of time. And like I'm sort of known for being big into Dragon Gate also, because they also like have like a 20, I think it's a 27 year history in Japan with Torimon. And to see like sort of the rise of Dragon Gate and Noah at the same time, who comes from Dragon Gate, but like Taiji Ishimori to help establish the junior division in Pro Wrestling Noah, where you know where the juniors were actually valued. And when we talk about the division, you talk about Ricky Marvin, Marufuji, Atsushi Aoki. You think about like guys like that came over from America, like Brian Danielson, like Loki, like Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards. It's and like one of my favorite tag teams of all time work there, like Kings of Wrestling. So like there's like this bond that I have between like the 2000s independent scene in America and the pro wrestling Noah. It's like it's great that they would bring in these foreign talent and like use them in like specific ways. And the Briscoes versus Kenta and Marufuji is a tremendous match. I think they also had a match with was it Maru and Sugi. And it's when I think about the history of pro wrestling Noah, it's just the history of great matches, of innovative fights, and just I also think about their Christmas specials because those are awesome.
Yes. Yes. Oh, geez. Some of the worst singing you're ever gonna hear is like hearing Misawa butcher the Christmas music. Like a version of Santa Claus is coming to town that I played for my wife and for my son, and they're both like, "Turn it off." That was hilarious. That's worth a look if you can find that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I
Too
loved
Cold
it when
Scorpio tried. He tries in there, man. I like there's this sort of respect that I have because in my family we value education. And for you to get your, I believe you got your PhD. What did you get your PhD in?
in communication. So that was like started in 2011 until 2016. I finally graduated. And yeah, look, if anyone out there is interested in reading a critical discourse analysis of the Sydney Diocese of the Anglican Church under Archbishop Peter Jensen, looking at their forays into public issues like same-sex marriage and some of the kinds of ways that they made the church more conservative under him, and analysis of his rhetoric, feel free to look that up. For anyone else that's normal, that's bored by that, I don't recommend it. But that thesis is out there.
That's
That's
right up my alley, man.
yeah,
I yeah, because when I think about like archdiocese and how they have such a such a command of public opinion, and they can like manipulate their churchgoers into believing the same thing. And it's sort of weird because like I grew up in a church where we did not rise on divisiveness or hate, where we were so welcoming and loving, and it was a Catholic church. So like to hear like all these other places like talk about like hate, burn in hell, that sort of stuff, it's like it's demeans to me what I how I grew up with the Bible. And I did leave the church eventually, but it's different. There's different ways you can go about things. And when you learn about like all the hate and how much control they can have over their population, especially because I'm a Filipino American, and I know how big the Catholic Church, how powerful the Catholic Church is in places like the Philippines. Um, you know, I think that's a hop, skip, and a jump away for you guys in Australia. um,
yeah,
and
it's left.
yeah, so like I do like, man, that article sounds like right up my alley. So I hope I can get a DM and just like read that. But
Yeah, I'll put that too for sure. But it's like
yeah,
so it was one of those topics where I had a lot of burning passion about just kind of here are some fairly marginalized groups as far as like LGBT people, as far as women, as far as the church's treatment of younger people. And I sort of thought that, burning issue, and sort of poured a bunch of passion, a bunch of energy into this thing for 5 years, and then went, you know what, I'm kind of done with that. Like, I've written about it now. And then it's become really relevant the last week. Yeah, the Anglicans have a female archbishop, and for
That's
like
great.
they like the Archbishop of Canterbury, the person who's the head of their church, basically from a church point of view, is a woman, and that's huge. But for Sydney diocese, that's like, what's going on? This is insane, and they're kind of trying to move away from it all. And look, I'm not part of that particular church myself and stuff, but watching all this somewhat from the outside, somewhat from the inside, it's like, wow, I stepped away at a time just before all this blew up again. So I'll probably end up pulled back into that one at some point. But for now, at least, I'm happy just writing about different things. There's so much different stuff to focus on, and there's a lot of different avenues for my passions. So I'm happy that I've been invested as much into pro wrestling because it's something I love. Doesn't make me nearly as angry as this other topic does.
Yeah, because I often use pro wrestling as an escape for what we're dealing with, and for me, in America right now, it's it's a risk for me to just walk my dogs. I have to make sure I have my passport in my pocket,
Yeah.
because I'm not. I fit the description of somebody that shouldn't be here according to our government. And like when I try to watch wrestling in America on HBO Max, or like even on Netflix, I get inundated with these commercials for ice, and like I'm just like, okay, there's no way I can escape this stuff. So like when I watch, so like that sort of makes me fall into watching like lucha libre, which is like that's my number one favorite style of wrestling is lucha libre, and watching pro wrestling. And then like since I kind of cleared out a lot of American stuff that I don't really want to watch. If I do watch AEW, I'm watching like I guess a pay per view, or no, not the full pay per view. Probably just like
Yeah.
to break kayfabe. I only watch the matches that I wanted to watch. That I watched the
Yeah.
YouTube highlights of what I didn't watch just to say, oh, that's cool. And but like there's something this year where like I really got into like Noah, DDT, Dragon Gate, Stardom, because like sometimes New Japan, but New Japan is so frustrating to watch because they get to like where you think they should go, and then they go a completely other way, and then like it's like, okay, whatever. But like, and then like for Noah, it's like always something unfortunate happening, whether it's the Ozawa getting injured. uh I, I didn't really think Inamura got much of the anything from that excursion. I think he got a cowboy hat. That's what he got. And
Oh, his Japanese English is so good though. Like, he's
yeah, it's great.
kind of just mixing between the two is so good.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's got a good theme
he's
song too.
yeah, he's trying to be Japanese, Japanese Stan Hansen. It's pretty funny actually, but
I'm on board. I love that guy
it
so much.
it's it's really early in the run, but he's wrestling like in jeans, like he's a smoking gun. So for me, a kid of the new generation, that's fun. Um, but like yeah, there's something where I can escape with these pro wrestling in Japan or in Mexico, or like MCW Australia. Shout out to my guys over there. Shout out to my friend Crystal Fisher. He's a poster, very muscular, handsome man. Anyway, I'm about to thirst over my boy, but it's because I'm Myron. There's just this way to escape. That pro wrestling is an escape, and I know like some people use the words like cinema or like stuff like that, but like what, like you watch your wrestling however you want to watch it, and I'm not gonna judge you for how you want to watch it because so oftentimes we get like sort of stuck in our own way of like, no, how I watch it is the right way to watch it. How you watch it, you should watch it how like I watch it, and that discourse around that is so like it's annoying. It's not like it's engaging in the point like everybody wants to like come in and like dogpile on someone, but also it's annoying for like yeah that person getting dogpiled on said something really stupid, but you guys are also saying that no, this is the right way. This is the only wrestling you should watch, and it's like No, we have the freedom to watch what we want and to consume how we want to consume it, and how we interpret that media is entirely up to us as people and uh, how we interpret it.
Which
And you know,
that's a good point. Yeah, like Fumi Saito made that point recently. He said like wrestlers should give us the tools to interpret their matches a little bit, but then leave it to us. You know, give us some hints, but don't interpret it all for us. I was like, whoa, okay, I hadn't considered it that way before, but
well,
absolutely, that yeah, all these different
yeah,
stories.
because you know, Fumi, he loved the funks, right? So he went
Yeah,
to school in in Minnesota. I think he's a Golden Gopher like Ric Flair and Brock Lesnar and Shelton Benjamin. that's that's funny. That shows dedication to a fandom, is to go to university in a foreign country just so you could watch like Nick Bockwinkel live. That's dedication,
not
man.
just university. It was his senior year in high school. So he
Oh
spent
gosh.
like from when he was 16 to when he's in his 20s, and it's like I think back to that time for me, like that's your key years basically. So in a
Yeah.
way, like he's Japanese, but he's so also fairly American in a lot of his
Yeah.
outlook. It's quite
I
fascinating that yeah, dude spent a lot of time over there and just
yeah.
knows everyone it seems.
Yeah, like, he knows everybody in wrestling. If you don't have a picture with Fumi, then I guess you're not a real wrestler. It's kind of like a Ribera jacket. Um, like, cause I know like other guys did grow up in America and like ended up in Japan. Like Kushida actually did middle school and high school in America, San Diego, and then Chono grew up in Seattle, Washington, and that's pretty like learning that kind of thing. I was like, oh, okay, I guess they kind of had like the like me, they had like the Asian immigrant experience, and that kind of like endeared me to them as older because I didn't know that until like maybe like 10 years ago, and it's always funny to me to like have these sort of connections to wrestlers where I was like, okay, so definitely Chono had a teriyaki bowl in Seattle and definitely went to the pier and saw people throw fish when he was. I definitely hated that. So it's just like there's this bond that between wrestling fans where we sort of had this understanding of, oh, you watch wrestling, okay, cool, so you like this and that, but like there's I feel like that's the juxt of this conversations that I have is like I can talk to anybody from around the world about why they love wrestling, and I'm never gonna judge you for what you love because like it's what you love and it's how you got into it. Because my cousin's favorite wrestling is women of wrestling, and he goes to the live shows every
Yep.
time they have tapings. But like some people would say like, oh, that's so weird. How come you only go to that? I was like, well, if you go to somewhere and you get like if it gives you the feeling and it satisfies like how you want to engage with and how you want to digest your wrestling, and if that's what you rock with, whether that be TNA or MLW or you know I'm just gonna name like Ryukyu Pro. it's just
Yes.
uh, it's just like that's fine. Watch whatever you want to watch. I love that people love pro wrestling, and I love that this is an art and that sort of like transcends. It's low art, but it can be communicable. Like what Fumi said, that kind of rings in my head of like, don't tell everybody everything. Just let them figure it out on themselves. Because like sometimes I love watching the wrestling where there's no commentary, where you just feel like and you hear the flesh hitting flesh, and I love that.
I mean, All Japan had that show. It was, I think it was last week. It was maybe the week before. It was one of those regional shows where Go Shiozaki debuted in back in All Japan again. That had no commentary. That was just kind of like watch what you've shown and kind of react how you're going to react. That was an awesome match. But yeah, absolutely. Like I think for me made the point too. You know that as wrestling fans, we've all had the experience of someone looks down on you for this thing that you love. You know, people will think that you're an idiot, think people watching, or think, don't you know it's fake? Like he had that experience so much growing up, like watching New Japan and watching like, when the show finishes and all the adults in the room being like, why do they always finish the match just before the time goes out? So yeah, just I think that's one thing we've all experienced as well is kind of this is a huge part of our lives as far as our fandom goes that some people just straight up do not understand.
No, they don't. My wife, until I brought my wife to like SummerSlam 2013, and because she had got into it sort of on Total Divas. I think a lot of people kind of like downplay how big Total Divas was as a draw to bring in new fans, new female fans, new male fans, new fans in general. It's and like she had fallen for like the John Cena Bryan Danielson story about like them sort of being like rivalish, but then them dating the sisters, and it was a whole thing. And I my wife ended up like loving that match, and then her guy back then was Randy Orton. So when Orton pinned Bryan at the end, she was like, "Haha, my guy won," and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's great."
it's so
And
frustrating. Yeah,
it
yeah,
was
because
such a good match too, because like I bring up that match because it's one of my favorite. It's my favorite WWE match, and they worked a Noah style match. I don't know if you know this, but John Cena was huge on Noah and huge on All Japan Pro Wrestling. He was big on like the All Japan Kings Road style, uh, and like he doesn't get to work that a lot of the time. But in this match with Bryan, they're slapping each other in the face. They're throwing lariats and kicks. They're doing big moves like super FUs and all this stuff, and like it's just an intense fight, and that's it looked like a Noah match to me. And you know, Bryan coming from that environment and be able to work a match like that, it's great. I think there was like an interview I read about John Cena where he was talking like I don't know if he was talking to like a Japanese magazine where he was talking about like how he had like a love of like the culture, like he loves anime. His favorite anime is Fist of the North Star, and like he just would watch the All Japan stuff, and it was what he the kind of wrestling that he wanted to do because he felt like that was the real wrestling. But you know, it sometimes he got to work that style. And, you know, it's his last year or whatever. But like in that match, I felt like the spirit of Masawa in that building because they were just going so hard. And I did, you know, there was another guy that wrestled that same night, Mr. Phil Brooks, who does the really shittiest go to sleep. That guy cannot do go to sleep and then make it look good. It's just it's like it's so easy to make that move look good, and you don't really have to like knock a guy out like what he did, like what Kenta did to Ricky Marvin. But it's just you know I love that Kenta now gets sort of his flowers and gets all this like recognition for what he did. But like back then when you were online and like people would say why is this guy doing CM Punk's move, and I'm
oh,
just like
gee.
what, oh my gosh, and I'm like and like CM Punk never says anything about him. Like, bro, you stole your whole ECW moveset from Kenta, but you made it look so sloppy and so bad. And but you know what? It still got over because Kenta's stuff looks cool. Um,
He had so much
Imagine if
kind
they
of.
had the real Kenta back then doing all his stuff.
So many
But
people like that. Yeah, so many people took stuff from Kenta. Like you could
yeah,
watch a Kenta match, like a Kenta Marufuji match, without either of them being in the building at one point.
yeah, it's amazing how many guys have taken from him, and Brian took from him. But like there's sort of just a respect there, and I like that Kenta is back home, although he still lives in America, so he's still a Florida brother. So it's kind of funny to me, and it's just what I feel about pro wrestling Noah, because a lot of people sort of like mock them. They hate the WWE sort of alliance, but you know, it's they're all shown on Abima because I think Noah also has a partnership with like New Japan right now where they send guys in there because that's why Hiromu's the GHC Junior Champion at the time of this recording. So it's just like uh, a lot of people sort of have the what I hate about Western fans about who love Western wrestling, love American wrestling is they try to tie everything in cast it in the view of what are the values in America without really doing research onto like what is the relationship with Noah and WWE where WWE sends guys here, Noah sends some guys to NXT, and that's all what their relationship is. It's just whatever. I'm just like okay, you can't associate Noah with what they're doing there corporately because they're just like using the guys. It's so weird to me that people are saying, look at Noah, they're working with the rape company, and I'm just like, well,
Yeah, I saw that this morning. Someone said, "Oh, they're working with the Nazis and with the people that are sex trafficking or something like that." And it's like, well, they had guys who make sense in Japan. So they had like AJ Styles, they had Shinsuke Nakamura. It's where it works that makes the most sense for Noah. But there's been a long time thing where there's been like, oh, rumor that WWE is going to buy Pro Wrestling Noah. That comes from a time when like WWE wanted to launch NXT Japan. And it's
yeah,
like that was meant to be for all the stories about it and all the hype. NXT Japan was meant to be a reality TV show where they would go into the Noah dojo and they would send these guys from NXT over. That was all that it was ever meant to be, and that never happened. So, a lot of kind of stuff gets made out of very little as far as this goes. And I guess people, I can understand that in a way. People don't want WWE to buy into Japan, but it's just never going to happen. It's such a different market. And see how they went over there last time. The last show that they did there, I think they got half the
yeah.
building. We agree.
They I think Marigold and Stardom did way bigger numbers than they did, and that's a fact. And it's just WWE doesn't exist over in Japan as it used to in the 2000s, because I think like a lot of wrestlers back then, who are wrestlers now, like Kairi and Takeshita and Aoyagi in All Japan. They talk of the Aoyagi, but they used to talk about how they watched WWE back on television, and I sort of like came to this like sort of weird distinction of Takeshita. He really reminds. I know like Aoyagi says he loves the Rock. He does the People's Elbow. Does the Rock
Yeah.
Bottom. But a lot of what Takeshita does comes from the Rock. The big sells, standing and looking like to the crowd, and the big moves and knowing when to hit the big moves. He reminds me of the Rock. And so
Yeah.
it's like it's kind of funny when you think about like a lot of wrestlers here in America want to do what they do in Japan, and it's funny that a lot of Japanese wrestlers want to do what they do in America. Because like
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Kento loves grew up watching Hulk Hogan tapes, so that's why he does the ear cup, the big boot, the axe bomber. It's and he does like the big entrance. It's funny when you find out like who actually is a fan of who, and like
I mean, that's been the case forever. That's been like, since Japanese wrestling started, it was an American product that made its way to Japan, that Japan
yeah.
embraced and put their own spin on. So they've always been, having people go over there, and they've always sent people from the Japan to the US that have had a huge influence. And it's been a long and interesting history there. So yeah, there's those connections, and it sounds strange to like compare Hulk Hogan to Kento, but yeah, absolutely. Like he grew up watching the tapes from the videos still, like when he was a kid and stuff. So yeah, Kento is an interesting guy like that, a very interesting guy.
Yeah. Um, man, I want to thank you for coming on to my show and like giving me this opportunity to share your story with people,
Of
because
course.
like I feel like sharing stories is how we connect as people, because oftentimes when we're just typing and we're talking to each other, but now we're actually talking to each other, and like it's cool, man. I feel like this sort of bond with you, because like here we are, people on like geographically different parts of the globe, and we're like sort of just like here connecting on our love of pro wrestling, on Pro Wrestling Noah. And man, it's been great to have you on here. I'm just I'm just excited for the book release. I'm excited for hybrid wrestling, hybrid shooter to get like this out there and to get your story out there. I mean, not you, it's your story because you wrote it, but to get the story of Pro Wrestling Noah, the unauthorized story, you know, it's just it's great. And um, I want to give you this time to like sell your book to the people on my show, because like it's freedom and faith is like you know, pro wrestling side, sometimes like we call pro wrestling like sort of a ceremony, right? Sort of like something we do like church, where you go and you go to the halls, like so Korekin Hall or Sumo Hall is sort of like the church, and like we sit there and we pay homage and like watch and like get the sermon from this wrestling. So like Faith and Freedom, that's amazing title, man. Um, yeah, but why should people get this book?
Um, so for one, I'm hoping that people get this book because if you love pro wrestling, or if you love Japanese pro wrestling, or even if you just want some kind of like insight into Japanese culture, there will be something in the book that will connect with you. But really, I think it's mostly a book about kind of how people deal with strange times and adversity, and kind of the bizarreness of an industry that is a mishmash of all sorts of different things, and kind of how they come up and down, and kind of the everything from the Yakuza scandal to Misawa's death to the way that they at one point could not sell out Kirk and Hall. So it's a story that has ups and downs. So I think like if you're interested at all in a story about like kind of the way that they overcome this, and the way that a company overcomes anything like that, then Noah has a compelling story to tell. Outside of that, there's the artwork in this one is
Oh
fantastic. I
yeah,
really much,
I
much.
love I love anime. So
Yeah.
like the cover is just like classic like manga cover, and who did that art for you, man?
So the guy's name is Mushkila Muhammad. He basically is based in the UK, and as an artist, he's got an Instagram page that is worth following. And I saw him really put out a couple of pieces for about All Japan, and a few like Noah pieces as well. So when I got my first book out, I was like, I need to have one of his artworks as the cover. And so he was pretty cool about me organizing that. And he's done a bunch of internal work for this one as well. So there's a bunch of internal artworks that sort of one per chapter for this one. So he's done images of Kenta, of Marufuji. I've shared a few of them, but most of them we haven't really unveiled. But you can see a few of them on Hybrid Shoots page and stuff. And yeah, just his artwork alone, I think, makes getting the book worthwhile, just to support his work, really. So yeah, I mean, I think that kind of Japanese pro wrestling makes for fascinating books, but there's a reason that we don't see a huge market out there for it. Like it's a niche thing, and it's like a thing that
Yeah,
you know.
it's a niche and a niche.
And to get the translations for this, and to translate Japanese to English, you can't really do that using these apps. Auto translation lets you down at some point, so it's worth paying a translator for. But to do that requires money. So we kind of need to support not just my work, but the work of other people out there that are plugging away at trying to get us some reliable stuff out there, as far as understanding the gaps there in our history of pro wrestling, and especially when it comes to Japanese pro wrestling. So it's not just about kind of my work here, it's especially Muhammad's work and the work of a few other people that have contributed to this thing.
Yeah, that's lovely, man. Yeah, we talked about Australian Wagyu for a little bit, but
Yeah.
my favorite part of each meal is dessert. So, what's your favorite
Yes.
dessert?
I'm kind of the first one that immediately springs to mind is probably sticky date pudding, but there's
Ooh,
also like banoffee pie is my other one. So it's somewhere between those two.
I do love banoffee pie. It's dangerous for me because I got diabetes, and I get the one slice.
Yes.
But if when my wife sees me going for the next one, she's like, "Nope." That's why I'm a wife guy. She wants me to be live, and yeah, man,
They keep us healthy, and they keep us focused, and they stop us from doing stupid shit sometimes.
yeah, yeah, man, that's wonderful. And I always ask this question because it sort of gets into like the heart of the matter, and it shows me how your personality is and what your character is. So say a rainbow came out the sky with a message from Dr. John. What would that be saying?
As far as a message from me goes,
Yeah.
might have been the first time you stumped me as far as this whole thing goes. Man, so one thing as far as this goes is like this book, that the whole point behind the title, in case it's thrown to anyone, Freedom and Faith is not Fox News's latest broadcast. The title sounds like that. I was worried about that when I called it that. Freedom and Faith is about Misawa's ideal of professional wrestling, which is you can do whatever you want, however you want, but you have to take responsibility for your own actions. And if you take responsibility for your own actions, whether you leave Noah or stay there, whether you uh, have your own gimmick or however you want to present yourself, as long as you're taking responsibility for yourself, he's okay with it. And whether or not Pro Wrestling Noah lives up to this, I think it's an important message for us all. So, yeah, that's one thing. I don't know. I hope that nails it enough.
Yeah, yeah, that's great, man. Again, I want to thank you for coming on. It's an honor for me to have someone so learned, someone so smart,
Being an
someone
honor.
so someone like that I actually have a big amount of respect for, because to be someone who could write 3 books on the subject of something they love, and I love pro wrestling. Um, it's fantastic to me. Reading is very reading has sort of had a resurgence over the last, since COVID, because we were stuck at home, so we gotta find something to do. And whether you're reading this on Kindle, whether you have like the actual hard copy, whether it's just, I don't know if you're gonna have an audiobook, but
We should, right? Like, I figure we at some point have to do that, right?
because like I feel like with audio, like what we're doing now, is sort of something that sort of gives intent with what you're saying, and you could feel like how somebody's saying, because a lot of times when people write something out, if they're not good at it, it's going to be coming off like as not legit, not thing, but like the good writers, the great writers, you can feel the words through the page. And sort of like audio is sort of like a sort of like little cheat code where you can like
Yep.
you can express your feelings by actually expressing your feelings with intent with your voice. But like what you do is what you do with your work. It's pretty good. I read parts of Gambaru, um, and you can get. Where can everybody buy these?
Oh, so those are available on Amazon. So Ganbaru and the Muto years are on Amazon. We're kind of finishing up now. We're in the last week, so 7 days exactly today, the last week of the Indiegogo campaign for Freedom and Faith. So yeah, Indiegogo, Freedom of Faith, Freedom and Faith. If you look for that, that one really helps us because we get a bigger slice of that than we do Amazon, and so that's the best way to sort of support the artwork behind this and support the artist, as far as Montreal goes. So yeah, it's available for the rest of this week, and then we'll have the general sale. So the US is the only territory right now that gets the print version. But once
Wow.
that's finished next month in November, we'll have the general release, so everyone around the world will be able to get the print version and the EPUB as well, as far as the electronic version of this one as well. So yeah, check that out next month if you live outside of the States, if you want a print version. But if you're in the States, it's the cheaper way to get it as well. So yeah, Indiegogo campaign, and the rest for Amazon.
Yeah, I love having the book in my hand so I can actually read it, and because like also my eyes are kind of messed up as an older man, as an old man in my 40 who's 40, so like having the page and not having to like get the light from my phone and just being stuck on it, it's really cool to like have the pages, feel that ink, feel see that paper artwork. It's great, and you should get his book. I'm not paid for this at all because I am doing this out of love of pro wrestling, love of reading, and this guy is a great talk, great hang. I usually been doing this on the end of my shows. It's called affirmations. It's nothing to do with a religion. It's nothing to do with a prayer. All it is having an affirmation with my guest, because you know we gotta just like sit and just kind of like reflect and contemplate. I'm gonna say this. So, Dr. Jonathan, my friend from down under, I believe your writing has been excellent. You're an excellent writer. You're an excellent orator, and I hope nothing but the best for you, and hope you the biggest success with this book, because keeping track of history is one of my favorite things to do, and you are keeping that history of pro wrestling Noah alive and giving it to an audience who wouldn't have the tools to have read the Japanese version of this, because I know you get so many sources to have told you these stories, and to get these stories put onto paper. It's a dream. It's always a dream to get some of your work become a reality with a real book. And so I want to say I commend you for that, and to have 3 books, and to have an Indiegogo campaign, and hopefully people always donate to the Indiegogo. Um, it's uh it's great, man. It's great. So I want to thank you for coming on to my show. This has been a blast, and yeah, I hope nothing for the best for you, man. This is something I believe in, and yeah, if you have one last word you want to say to people.
Well, first of all, thank you to you for having me on. This has flown by. Sometimes kind of you have the podcast and the time it kind of wears, but this has just been like over an hour, it's been like 10, 15 minutes kind of thing. And yeah, you're doing some incredible work there yourself as far as the guests that you have on, as far as this concept. So thanks to you. Beyond that, look, you can find me, anyone that wants to follow me on Twitter. Let's just call it Twitter. None of this
Yeah, there's no
like
point.
if Elon Musk can dead name his child, I can dead name the platform he stole. But so at Jonathan Foye, all one word, on Twitter, and I'm on Blue Sky as well under the same handle. Yeah, as far as the rest of my sort of stuff goes, I think we've kind of hit all the plugs as far as that goes. But yeah, look, I hate self promotion, man. I loathe it, right? So of
Yeah,
course I choose industries that just about require you to self promote, right? Like as far as the book goes. But yeah, so definitely again, check out the Indiegogo campaign, check out Amazon for this, and thanks again for having me on. And definitely appreciate the time. And yeah, I'm hitting the big 4-0 myself later on this year as far as becoming an
yeah.
old man. It's been quite the transition for that. So
Yeah,
being a
it's
you
so
know,
weird, man. I feel like because we grew up with the internet, we grew up with all the memes, we grew up with all that stuff. I don't feel like I'm an old man, but like when I
oh,
was young, I thought 40 was like you're an old man already. So here we are. But yeah, man, this has been tremendous, and thank you for coming on. And please buy the book, Faith and Freedom: Unauthorized Story of Pro Wrestling Noah. Get it, get it, get it. Put money in this man's pocket. It's what's good for your soul. Thank you, man.
thanks again.